mean, I think of the West, the UK is in the biggest difficulty at the moment because you've got rising inflation. We're actually going into a stagflationary environment probably. Yeah. Growth, obviously we're being sucked into the vortex of slowing growth in Europe as well. But then these changes that are announced in the budget aren't, anything but pro-growth.
They're horrible for the retailers as well, and ergo potentially horrible for the consumer. And this is where we're kind of almost segueing into the last conversation. But can we do the FTSE gainers? Have you got that board, team? Because on the back of what we just saw, and you'll be interested in this, you've got Berkeley Group, Homes, Marks and Spencers, which we talked about, Next, which we've talked about, and JD Sports, which has been an absolute dog as of late. If the UK is so challenged, which I agree with you, I think it is really challenged, why are the retailers and home builders having a bit of a day in the sun today?
Yeah, well, I think people are predicting it's going to be much worse than it's actually materialising out. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? We saw with Next. And Next historically have been pretty good at dealing with sort of downturns and restructuring themselves. But look, we can see, I mean, what's good for a company isn't necessarily good for the economy. And we're hearing stories anecdotally all the time of people just delaying hiring. If people are leaving, they're not replacing them because of this national insurance hike. And if you are a service-based company, you've got to plug that gap in profitability. Can I just say one thing
before Karen jumps in, because she's got some amazing points on this as well. So I know a friend of mine who is hiring at the moment, and she cannot find someone for love the money. She's offering generous terms because she wants to kind of get people coming back to the workplace as well. So she's offering kind of almost like extended holidays, a lot of work from home within there as well. She cannot find an employee for love the money who is satisfactory for that job.
Yeah, interesting. Which sector is that?
It is in the education sector.
Education, yeah. Okay.
Oh, well, you said, education. What do you mean, education? Well, you went really Scottish there, Haig. Education, well, that's a special case. Yeah. Is it?
I think it's sector by sector, isn't it? I mean, if you look at financial services in particular, I know lots of people, and they've just said, look, we're just postponing hiring. We're seeing that left, right, and centre, and particularly if I mean, I suppose it depends who your owner is. If you're a self-owned business, it's quite different to if you're something like private equity backed. But if you're a private equity backed, company and you're employing lots of people, and you've had a couple of £1 million hole put in your P&L because of the national insurance increases, you're going to be expected to make that up over the next 12 months. Yeah.
I think this is the point. There's a lot of nuances around the UK economy, and that's house prices as well. And if you look at the retail story, and this has been a headline story in the last 24 hours, you've had the industry association effectively saying, look, there are going to be layoffs. Retailers cannot afford to be paying all these national insurance contributions, higher minimum wages as well. It's going to come at a cost of jobs. But if you look at Next today, it says it will cost them more than £70 million for the year. But before we shed a tear for Next, we've got a stock that's been on the rise. It's had annual profit outlook hiked again for the fourth time in 6 months. Next can afford it, but others may not be able to afford it. So again, the grey areas here across the UK economy.
Yeah, I think it's going to become more and more, well, it's going to become more polarised, isn't it? So I think you're sort of jumping around, but if you look at the US, you can see defaults are picking up now. So there's a kind of latency in terms of rates starting to have an impact on more levered companies. But obviously there's always going to be the strongest player in the sector, and Next historically have proven themselves to be that. Whenever there's been a downturn, they've always been good at adapting and adjusting.
So, which brings me to trades. The trades of 2024, are they the trades of 25? I mean, do they change just because we've had a calendar year change? And to me, I was looking at some of the recommendations from analysts too, and they, to me, seem to be Mag 7 stocks. Could you go wrong for putting bets again on Mag 7 stocks and semiconductors, buying some of those UK retail names that have done well? Are they the same trades as we start off this year? Yeah,
well, I remember having exactly the same conversation last year about the US market and the Mag 7, and people saying, "Oh, they've gone so far," in 2022 at that point. The risk, obviously, last year was not having exposure to those stocks. So I think there's a lot more risk in not owning these stocks than there is in owning them at the moment, particularly because you're seeing the feed through to profitability in these second order effects. And you're seeing Google and these people now starting to pick up, and obviously they were lagging in the first part of last year. I mean, I'm not sure I'd be brave enough to go sort of value picking in the UK market per se. And I know you're going to shoot me down in a second on this, but I think there's much more value in Asia, for example, at the moment than in the UK.
So